Welcome back, class. Today we're going to be covering Cluster 4, Lesson 3, Two-Way Tables, Part 1. So to start out with two-way tables, we're going to go over a couple definitions. And the first definition that we have is called bivariate data. Okay, it consists of pairs of linked numerical observations or frequencies of things in categories. The second definition we're going to go over is frequency. A frequency is a number of times an event occurred. And the last definition for this lesson is going to be two-way tables. And a two-way table shows the frequencies for the data that is categorized two ways. So in our next part of our notes, we're going to cover one of our goals about two-way tables. And the first goal is learning how to read a two-way table. When reading a two-way table, you can consider many different sets of information. Every column, every row, and every intersection of a columns and rows can state different conclusions about the data set. So let's look at an example of a two-way table. Okay, so if we look at this example, so if we look at our first row, the first row is youth. Okay, so everything about the youth is going to be within this first row here that we can see. Okay, the next row is going to be adults. So everything in this row talks about adults. This last row here is going to be our total that we have for the two categories. Now, if we look at the column, the first column that we have is going to be print. So everything dealing with print is in this column here. The next column is going to be electronic. So everything about electronics is going to be here. And then the last row is we have another total set. Okay. So if we talk about how to break this down, here says that we have for 26. Okay, for 26 it says that there's 26 youth that like printing. But after that you'll see it says there are 24 adults that like printing. And then we have 27 youth that like electronic. And then we have 34 adults that like electronic. Now, with that being said, these last rows and columns that's going to be on the outside, these are our total columns. So if we look at this first one, which is a 50, that 50 tells us that this is the total prints for youth and adults. Okay, the next one we have, which is the 61, the 61 is going to be the total of electronic. Let me go back and put print here. Okay. Now, if we go off to the side, this 53, this is the total youth that was surveyed. And here we have the 58. This is the total adults. Now, we got one more total that's left. This is that 111. That 111 is the total amount surveyed. So now we can use these two-way tables to answer plenty of different types of questions depending on what they're asking for. So right now, based off what we just went over, we notice that every row and every column has different meanings. Okay, depending on what the table is about. Like this table is talking about youth and adults who like printed or electronic books. Okay, like the 26 is printed, 24 is adults who like printed. For electronics, there was 27 youth and 34 adults, and total surveyed was 111. So now let's move on to the next. Our next goal is to talk about how to finish a partially completed table. So in order for us to fill in a partially completed table, we're going to use what we know to calculate what we don't know. So in order to do that, we're going to be using addition and subtraction. So let's look at an example. It says a random sample of students were surveyed and asked to list their grade level and whether or not they have a pet. Results are shown in the table below. So we got to draw a table below. All right, so we got 12 7th graders said they don't have a pet. We got 10 8th graders said they don't have a pet. We got 36 8th graders were surveyed, and 54 total students said they have pets. So let's create the table. So in order to create a table, we're going to start by listing off. It says the first thing was their grade level. So we got 7th and we got 8th. Okay, so we're going to make a line above that. Now, first one says whether they have a pet. So if you got a pet, we're going to put pet. We're going to break that down. We're going to say no pets, because they wanted to know whether they had a pet or not. So we got the 2 columns and the 2 rows that we need. The only one that we don't have yet is our total. So we got to have a total column and row. Okay, so we're going to jot that down so we can fill in all of our information. Alright, so the first bullet point said there was 12 7th graders who said they don't have a pet. So under 7th grade, I'm going to go no pet and put a 12. Then it said there was 10 8th graders that said they don't have a pet. So there was 10 8th graders with no pet, so I'm going to put 10. There was 36 8th graders that were surveyed. So if this is my 8th grade column, I'm going to go all the way to the end where my total is and put 36. And then there's 54 total students who said they have a pet. So total students, we're going to go to the pet column, go all the way down to total and put 54. Now, we have to fill in all these missing blanks using the information that was given to us. So let's do what we have to do. Now, we're only going to be using addition and subtraction. Okay, so to start off, I'm going to go where in my table where I have at least 2 numbers beside each other. And what I mean by that is this. You see how we got 36 and 10 right beside each other? So I'm going to start there. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take 36 and I'm going to subtract 10 from it. That's going to give me 26. So that means this row right here, these 2 numbers have to add up to equal 36, and that blank is going to be 26. Okay, so now with that blank being filled in, if you notice by me putting 26 here, that goes right there with that 54. So I can use that 54 and 26 to help me fill in the missing blank above it. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to take 54 and subtract 26 from it. So when I do 54 minus 26, you get 28. So that blank at the top here is going to be 28. Okay, so by me filling in that blank, I can use these 2 numbers to help me get this missing blank. But now, since we have 2 within the columns within the middle of the table, not in the total, we're going to take those 2 numbers and add them together. So we're going to take 28 plus 12. So when we get 28 plus 12, we end up with 40. So I'm going to put 40 in this column right here. Okay, then we got 1 more blank, well, 2 more blanks left. We're going to save the main total for last. So if I look here, I got 12 and 10. 12 and 10 makes 22. So this blank here is going to be 22. Now we got 1 more major blank left, and that's the total amount of students who are being surveyed. So in order to do that, you can either use either row or either column for your total, because they should be the same for each. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 40 and add 36 to it. When I take 40 and add 36, I get 76. Okay, now just to verify, I'm going to do it again. That's going to be 54 and that 22 from the other total side. If I add those together, they should be matched, which is 76 also. So that last blank, which is our main total, so there were 76 students that were surveyed for this question. Okay, all right, so let's look at our last example for this set of notes. It says the students in the seaside school are to have extra swimming lessons if they cannot swim. The table below gives information about the students in grades 7, 8, and 9. So in order for us to answer these 5 questions that's off to the side, we have to fill in the entire two-way table. So let's start off with what we have so we can find what we don't. If I see, like looking under can swim, we got 120, 168, and 172. So we're going to take all three of those numbers and add them together. So I got 120 plus 168. It's going to give me 288. Then I take that 288 and add the remainder 172. That's going to give me 460. So that means I can write 460 as this total. Okay. Then under the ones that cannot swim, I'm going to add those up. So we got 60 plus 11. That's going to be 71. Then we take that 71 and add 3 to it. That total is going to give me 74. So I'm going to put 74 here. Okay, so now that I filled in those columns all the way down to the total, now I got to get my rows. Okay, so for my first row, I got 120 plus 60. So that's going to give me 180. Then I got 168 plus 11. That's going to give me 179. And then that last row that we have is 172 plus 3. That's going to give me 175. Now for us to get our grand total, we can use either column or the row. So whatever you decide, but they both have to add up to be the same. So I'm going to use the column. I'm going to do 180 plus 179 first. That's going to give me 359. Then I'm going to take that 359 and add that 175 to it. And when I do that, that's going to give me 531. So my grand total of people or students that were surveyed is 531. Okay, so now that we have our table filled in, let's look at our questions. It says how many students need swimming lessons. All right, so the ones that cannot swim needed swimming lessons. So that's going to be 74. How many students are in 8th grade? So we go to our column that says 8th grade, go all the way across to total 179. All right, it says how many of the 7th graders students cannot swim. So I go to grade 7. We're looking for cannot swim. So these cannot swim. So there's going to be 60 that cannot swim. It says how many students in grade 7 and 8 can swim. So grade 7, grade 8, they said can swim. So we got 120 plus 168, and that gave me 288. And the last one, it says how many students are there altogether in grade 7, 8, and 9. So all grade levels across is going to be 531 students. Okay, so now that we fill that in, looking at two-way tables, we're doing a whole bunch of adding and subtracting depending on what they're asking us to do. Sometimes we have to set up our own two-way table, but that's really it for now. So filling in two-way tables is one of our goals, and being able to read two-way tables based off what they're asking us to do. Okay, so that's the end of this set of notes. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.